Hello everyone, this is part 31 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
For the past few days the only thing on Naruto's mind was to complete the Rasengan. He had gone up to the second stage but the third part he was having a hard time with. He was currently in an open field littered with small craters from his previous failed attempts. He knew that he could get this but he was running out of time. For days he had been trying to get this right but he couldn't get it. He had to compress it all down and also keep up the spinning chakra by pouring more power into it. Doing both at the same time was proving to be too much for him. He couldn't focus on both at the same time. Either he would lose focus on one of the two and the Rasengan would become unstable. Keeping both in balance was the key, but it was a lot harder than it sounded. Currently he was on his back looking up at the night sky. He only had 2 days left and he couldn't get past this stupid wall he hit in his training. Well, he wasn't going to give up. That wasn't him. He would force his way through this like with everything else if he had to. Now if only he could move his body to get up and do it again. Naruto, are you okay? Naruto looked over to see Sakura walking over to him and kneeling down. Hey Sakura-chan, just taking a break is all. He told her. She didn't believe him as she looked at his hand. There were nasty looking scorch marks on his palm. Sitting down she looked at it. It looked kind of nasty and very painful as well. From seeing how Sasuke's hands got from trying to master that new jutsu of his, she could tell that Naruto was trying not to make her worry. It was a good idea that she had gone to check on him. Seriously, you're really overdoing it like usual. Sakura gently took his hand and saw him wince. See, it hurts just by a light touch, doesn't it? Only a little. He muttered, then Sakura pinched it as he yelled out. Okay, it hurts a lot more than that. Sakura sighed as she started to pull out bandages and looked at the healing ointment she had left. From patching up Sasuke she barely had any left as she frowned. Honestly, I'm going through too much of these healing supplies on you too. I'm not even sure how effective this will work on this. Maybe I could help. Both young ninja turned to see Shizune walking over to them. She had been watching Naruto struggle with the move for a while now in the trees hidden from sight. There was something strange about the young boy and she was curious about him. Watching him put so much into his training was also admirable as well. He hadn't stopped training for days. He always came back to the hotel tired and usually being carried by Jiraiya. So today she had silently followed him to see if he was making any progress. She knew that Tsunade didn't expect the boy to make it and was making plans on what to do after she won her bet with the boy. A part of her hoped that the boy would win. She wanted Tsunade to put away her past and move forward, to go back home. Shizune knew that Tsunade wasn't really happy living like this, but she was also too stubborn to do anything else. She was now kneeling down next to Sakura looking at the boy's hand. There was a lot of chakra burns into the flesh. May I see that? Shizune asked Sakura for her ointment and looked at it. She placed her finger into it and smelt it and tasted it a little. Ah, standard ointment treatment. You can tell that. Sakura blinked at the woman's skill to tell all of that from just smelling it and tasting it. Shizune smiled at her. I'm Tsunade's apprentice, so I know many different types of treatments. But I think I have something better. Shizune placed her hand over Naruto's as glowing green chakra was seen as Naruto looked at his hand. There was this strange warmth flowing into his hand as the pain was slightly fading away. Pulling her hand away revealed that Naruto's hand looked a little better. Shizune pulled out her own supplies as she started to wrap Naruto's hand up. What was that? Naruto and Sakura asked at the same time. That was medical ninjutsu. It uses chakra to help heal injuries as well as a few other things. Tsunade-sama created and refined hundreds of techniques. In fact, many say that she ratified the medical ninja corps into the best the world has ever seen. Konoha casualties were lowered ever since she started teaching her techniques. Shizune said proudly. Wow, that's handy to have. Naruto could flex his fingers again. Sakura paused to think about it, given how much Sasuke and Naruto got hurt and she usually tried to fix him up. Seeing this technique was something interesting and it might be helpful, she tried to keep up with the boys but they just had more chakra than her and their skills were different. She tried but it only seemed that her skills were more supportive at times. Can anyone learn this? Sakura asked the older woman. I mean, do you need large chakra for this or something? Actually, the best medics are those with the best chakra control, Shizune stated as she finished her work. It's very delicate work, so you need a good amount of concentration and chakra control because a lot of the techniques can be very subtle. Sometimes you have to heal things as small as veins or even working on trying to fight infections. Not everyone can do it either, as it also requires much studying and remembering a lot about the human body. Well, that sounds perfect for Sakura-chan, Naruto said suddenly. She always got top scores on all the tests and she did the tree climbing exercise on her first try. Really? Shizune looked at the girl. She remembered that it took herself 5 times to climb the tree when she learned it. In fact, doing the tree climbing exercise in one go was practically unheard of. Shizune looked at the pink-haired girl and was starting to wonder maybe this girl had some hidden talents after all. If you want, I could try and teach you a couple simple exercises to see if you have any talent for it. Really? Sakura was happy to hear about it. Anything that would help her become a better ninja was welcomed. Shizune nodded happily. It would allow her to get to know the girl more, and also it might be nice to help see if she could train the young girl. We can start tomorrow, but let's get Naruto-kun back to the hotel. No way, I can still train, Naruto protested. Shizune looked at the young boy with a determined glare. You are going back to the hotel and you are going to sleep. You are suffering from chakra exhaustion, not to mention chakra burns on your hand. You need to recover, and that's what you're going to do. Now, are you going to behave or are you going to be difficult? Naruto didn't say anything after the lecture from Shizune, and Sakura's opinion of the other woman was starting to grow as she picked the boy up and started to tell him about all the troubles the human body could suffer through with chakra exhaustion and pushing it too far. Sakura listened, in both learning a few things and also somewhat enjoying Naruto getting lectured on their way back to the hotel. Konoha Hospital. In a bed of the special observation wing of the hospital was the silent form of Kakashi Hatake. He had lost consciousness from the fight with Itachi and hadn't woken up since. The doctors were confused by it as they couldn't find anything physically wrong with him. They were still working, but they were unable to figure out why he hadn't woken up, other than some type of trauma had been inflicted. Currently he was the only patient in the room, but not the only person. Kurenai was there to visit him, as she and others did from time to time. Guy certainly came in, as did Asuma, plus others that either worked with Kakashi in the past. Some even Kurenai guessed from Anbu that still regarded the man as someone they honored. But out of everyone, Kurenai had never seen Anko, and she was starting to wonder what had gotten into that girl. Her man was here in bed and she wasn't around. It didn't make sense to Kurenai, and at first she thought maybe she just missed her, but talking with other visitors they hadn't seen her. In fact, Anko was keeping a very low profile and hardly anyone had seen her. Kurenai looked at the still form of the man in the bed and saw the mask on his face. She asked a nurse about why it was still on. They said there was a standing request from Kakashi that if he was ever put into the hospital he wanted his mask on most of the time. It was an oddball thing to request, but since it was Kakashi, Kurenai figured it was just something he would do. The door to the room opened and she was surprised to see one of her students, Hinata, walking in with a small vase of flowers. Hinata. Ah. Kurenai-sensei, sorry, I didn't know anyone else was here. Kurenai smiled at the young student. Don't worry about it, so you're here to see Kakashi too. Hinata nodded. He always treated me nicely growing up with Naruto-kun. Although she had never said it, Hinata considered Kakashi almost like another uncle. She remembered how he was always kind to her growing up and how sometimes he would supervise her and Naruto as children when they played together. He had even given her presents on her birthday and all kinds of other little things. Slowly she moved to the side of the bed and placed her flowers on a table nearby as she looked sadly at the man. He had always been a little larger than life to her, a famous ninja and yet a good father and man. Looking at him now in this bed so weak, it brought back memories of her mother, and she prayed every night for Kakashi to get better so that Naruto wouldn't know the pain of losing a parent. Are you okay? Kurenai noticed the pain look in her eyes, but also how slow she was moving. Lately you've seemed a little tired. When we can arrange to have practice, and you seem sluggish. I've been getting help from Neji-Nisan. Hinata blushed at being found out. She wanted to keep it a surprise for Naruto, of course. I've been getting up early with him and meeting his team. Wait, you're taking training lessons from Guy? Kurenai wasn't sure how to take that. Guy was a master at getting someone physically fit after all, but he did go overboard a lot. The fact that Hinata was doing this worried her, as Hinata wasn't really built for that kind of work. Another sensation was that Kurenai felt a little embarrassed that one of her own students went to another teacher for help. She tried to get with her team as much as possible, but with how crazy things were, it was just really difficult. Is that okay? Hinata hadn't really considered if Kurenai would object or anything. I just wanted to get stronger, and also Neji-Nisan is helping with my family's style when his team can't train. Kurenai couldn't fault the girl, after all she had confidence problems, so if this was helping her become a stronger person, then Kurenai really couldn't say anything against it. Thinking on it, maybe it was for the best. Hinata really had no skill with genjutsu and seemed to only be able to use the water skills she had trained with. Her physical nature was one of the young Hyuga's drawbacks. She wasn't built for power, which is what the gentle fist wasn't about, thankfully. So maybe this physical training would help her not only in that area she lacked, but maybe for her confidence. Just don't overdo things, okay? Kurenai told her student. I know that guy can get pretty intense at times with his training, so try to not get injured because of it. Hinata nodded her head. After that first day of training, she was so tired and sore she wanted to crawl into her bed and sleep. The early mornings were hard to get used to, but Neji had always been there for her to help her through things. Even giving her little hints as to how to cope with it all. Tenten was also helpful as well for the girl. Still, the training was very hard, but she didn't mind. She felt like she was getting stronger because of it. Now, if you'll excuse me, Kurenai made a move to the door. I have to hunt someone down and get some answers. Kurenai tried the usually places, first Anko's apartment, but it was empty, and then she tried the few places she knew Anko liked to go to, but no luck there either. After that, it was trying to track her down by asking if anyone saw her. So far, Anko is keeping a really low profile. Most people haven't even seen her. Eventually, Kurenai tried looking for Anko in the training areas. It took 7 tries to finally track the woman down, and oddly enough, she was in the Team 7 training field. Most likely because it was the one she knew wouldn't have anyone there. Kurenai watched as Anko had thrown her jacket over a stump and had protruded some rope and tied it around one of the trees. She was currently beating the hell out of it with her fist, which Kurenai was thankful to notice that they were at least wrapped up. This was a training technique to strengthen your hands, and it could get very nasty if a person went overboard. The rope was to act like padding in a way from the bark of the tree, but remain a hard surface to toughen up your fist against. Anko had sweat pouring off her body and looked to have been at this for some time. Kurenai was able to walk right up to the woman, who was so focused in her own little world that she couldn't notice anything around her. Anko, what are you doing here? Anko stopped suddenly and turned to look, and Kurenai could see that the woman's face wasn't very healthy by the looks of it. Anko hadn't been sleeping well lately. Said woman just shrugged and went back to punching. Just training. I'm surprised you haven't seen Kakashi yet. Anko paused a bit. Is he awake? No. Then what's the point? She continued on, throwing her first as though she was battling something in front of her, instead of deep inside of her, as Kurenai was seeing. The point is that your boyfriend is in the hospital. Have you even seen him at all? A couple of times. Anko stopped this. Kurenai grabbed the girl's wrists in mid-strike and forced Anko to face her. What's gotten into you? This is nothing like how you act. How would you know? Anko shot back angrily. How does anyone know anything? Unless you can read my mind, you can't know how I'm supposed to be, so what makes you say that this isn't normal for me? Kurenai wasn't seeing where Anko was going with this. The woman was obviously upset but seemed to be keeping it all inside. Sure, a ninja wasn't supposed to show emotions, but there was a difference between not showing it and letting them eat you up inside. Kurenai calmed down as she spoke more gently to her friend. Anko, what's wrong? Please tell me. I'm your friend and I can see that something is wrong. Anko just turned to face away as she placed some light punches into her training spot again, although more slowly. I'm thinking of breaking things off. Kurenai's eyes widened. Wait, you mean breaking up with Kakashi? Why? I thought you were happy together. You call this happy? Anko said bitterly. If I wasn't with him, would I be feeling the same way now? It's better not to have attachments, to live your life without someone there. Hell, I've done it for more of my life, so why can't I do it again? Sure, the sex was great and it was nice, but it's just not worth it if he dies, and then what? The doctors can't help him, so what if for the rest of his life he's stuck like that? Anko placed one more punch against her target as her body started to shake. She hated this feeling. She hated feeling this weak inside. She never felt so powerless and she despised feeling powerless. Ever since that day when she had been betrayed, the person she had looked up to the most, her entire world had changed. At first things had been hard on her. She had been interrogated for any information on Orochimaru, but she couldn't remember anything anymore. Parts of her life had been stolen and she could never get them back again, plus she had been marked for life. She felt the cursed seal on her neck as it was a constant reminder to her, like a brand on her soul that would never go away. It made her feel dirty at times that he had marked her as though she were his property. It had taken time, but eventually she had overcome it. Some had thought she was a spy, others branded her because of her link to Orochimaru. Few were able to become friends with her, but she just pushed it all aside. She was used to being alone. Oh sure, she had made friends along the way like Kurenai, but when she went home to an empty apartment. But then things had changed. She had met Kakashi and at first she was just a friend but became something more. So much more that deep inside that she was scared of it. Anko, Kurenai placed a warm hand on her friend's shoulder. Do you know how much I would love to be in your position? Anko turned to face the woman like she was mad. Here you are in a lovely relationship when. Kurenai blushed as she fumbled with her own feelings. You had the courage to actually try. I haven't been able to do that. So what if Asuma was there? You would be in there crying over his body like the good little woman. Anko sneered. Kurenai coughed but continued on. Yes, well, not cry over him. He wouldn't like to see me like that, I bet. But I would be there for him. That's what it means to be in a relationship, Anko. To be there for each other in the good times and in the bad. Anko turned away as her fist balled up. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What wasn't supposed to be like this? It was just a fling at first. Anko shook her head. We were just supposed to date a bit, have some nice sex, and that was it, but then Kurenai moved forward and placed both hands on the woman's shoulder. She could sense that they were finally getting to the heart of the problem, just a little more and they would get to it. Go on, what happened? It's stupid. It's not if it makes you this upset. Yes it is. It wasn't supposed to be like this, but then we started hanging out and starting to talk and share things. God, I told him things I never told anyone, you know that. Stupid of me, I kept everyone at a certain distance, but then I have to open up to him of all people. She punched once more into the ropes hard enough that Kurenai could see some blood on her knuckles. I'm sure you weren't the only one. I'm sure he shared with you as well, and you know how he is. Anko gave a sad laugh. That's just it, I really do know how he is now. I have seen sides to him that no one gets to see. Don't you see? I was just out for a good time, I wasn't out to fall in. She stopped then as her arm dropped. Kurenai gripped her a bit more tightly. Anko, this is important. What is that it turned into? Anko didn't want to say the word, she didn't want to admit it. She wanted to run from this because it scared her too much to face it. She had lived her entire life without feeling it, so why now of all times? She had been prepared to just live her life going from one fling to the next with no real attachments. She figured she would just die in the line of duty, and she had honestly made her peace with it. So then why had she been thinking of a new future for herself? One where she was glad to finally live her life completely. She wanted to deny it, she wanted to bury it and forget about it, but every time she thought of Kakashi on that bed and that she might never see him again as the man he was, it broke her heart. She had never experienced pain like this, and it was only made worse because she couldn't have done anything to stop him from getting hurt. She had been there and she couldn't have done a single thing to help in the end. He had needed her and she couldn't have saved him, and it only made the pain worse. Anko. Kurenai shook her friend and turned her around and was shocked to see that Anko had tears falling. She had never known Anko to cry over anything. She had seen this woman get a kunai in her shoulder and hadn't cried like this. Anko, please, what is it? You have to admit it. I can see that it's eating you up inside, just let it out. Anko didn't want to hear it. She wanted Kurenai to go away, to have everyone go away and just leave her alone again. Anko, you know that you are never alone, Kurenai told her friend. You will always have the support of those close to you, and I know that Kakashi will get better. You will see him again, and whatever issues you have, you can work them out with him, but please, whatever you're holding on to, just let it go. Anko's resistance was breaking. She could feel it. She fought it tooth and nail, but the thought of seeing Kakashi again, it broke something inside of her. She wanted to see him again, to talk to him, to just have him in her life again. Damn you. Anko's head fell as she felt her body shake. Why couldn't you have just left me alone? Because I'm your friend and I don't like to see you in pain. Now what is that you weren't supposed to do? I wasn't supposed to fall in love with him. Anko said gently as she finally said the words that had been haunting her all this time. Everyone close to me ends up hurting me in the end, at least that's what I always thought. But then you and others show up and then Kakashi. God, I never thought I would know what love was. I thought it was just this stupid thing people called lust, but it's not. I feel warm when I'm in his arms, I look forward to going to his place or waking up in bed together. I feel happy when I'm with him, really happy, not just the regular kind. Kurenai hugged the young woman as Anko eventually hugged her back. It's okay, he'll be fine and all those wonderful things will be back in your life again. But what if he's not? What if I lose him? All this time I thought love was just a joke, but then that bastard made me fall in love with him, so now what? I don't think I can take this, my heart hurts worse than when Orochimaru betrayed me. Anko said, holding on tightly to the other woman. You have to have faith, Kurenai told her. You have to have hope that it will all turn out alright, as long as he breathes you know that he'll never stop fighting. She chuckled a bit as she pulled away, wiping her eyes. Yeah, he can be a pretty stubborn guy at times. God, look at me, I feel like such a girl. Well, you are one, Kurenai smiled. Shut up, Anko dried her eyes. You know what I mean, I don't do this girly emotional crap. Kurenai smiled as she looked at Anko. The other woman looked like she had a weight lifted off of her shoulders. Not all of it, but at least she wasn't being crushed by keeping all her problems inside. Anko was a good friend who had been given a lousy sensei that had taken advantage of an impressionable young girl who had worshipped him. It had left scars that many didn't see or even think she had, but Kurenai could tell that they were there, hidden under all that acting out and childish personality. Deep inside there was a young girl that had been hurt badly and was just afraid of being hurt again a second time. The worst things a person could face were the demons inside of you. To face yourself is one of the greatest challenges you could ever do in life. Feeling better? I don't know, Anko said honestly. I still feel like crap. If you tell anyone that I was like this, I swear. Kurenai held her hands up. It stays between us, I promise. Anko nodded and then her face fell as she sat down on the ground. Damn, I can't believe I said it. I never even said it to him that well, you know. I feel so screwed up inside over all of this, but I want things to go back to how they were with him and myself. I want him back, but I hate seeing him in that bed. It hurts every time I look at him. Kurenai sat down and put her arm around Anko. I know, but think of how good it will be when he wakes up and you're right there with him. Maybe, Anko sighed as she pulled her knees to her chest and rested her head on them. She hated waiting around, and honestly, how was she supposed to act when he woke up? Admitting to her feelings only brought up other issues, like what if he didn't feel the same, or what if he did, then what? Things were simple and yet now they were all very complicated simply because she let her guard down. Looking at her friend she smirked. So you envy me, huh? So does that mean you finally admit that you like Asuma and wished he would man up and ask you out? You know I could talk to him for you. Anko. Kurenai shouted out as she blushed bright red. I don't need you to do that. Well, you need some kind of kick in the ass, Anko sighed. I went after my man and got him. Show some interest in him, I bet he would take it. I mean, come on, use your sexy side to get his attention and you would have him eating out of your hand. Kurenai hated it when Anko turned the tables on her by using Asuma. Part of it was because there was a little truth in what Anko said. She was interesting in Asuma, there was just something about the man that was very attractive to her, and she would be lying if she said she never thought what it might be. Seeing Anko and Kakashi so happy together sometimes was hard to take, since although she masked it, Kurenai wished that could have been her at times. Yes, she was a ninja, but she was also a woman at heart, and sometimes you needed more than just your job and your duty to the village. Anko had gone after Kakashi, and although this was a dark time for them, she could see how deeply Anko cared, even if the other woman had tried to hide from it. Tell you what, Kurenai couldn't believe she was going to say this. When Kakashi wakes up, I'll ask out Asuma. You sure about that? Anko grinned, knowing how that might play out and making plans on watching it all happen. That's how confident that Kakashi will be okay. I'm betting on that, so what do you say? Kurenai asked stubbornly. Anko only grinned larger. No takebacks on this, and I mean a real date. Not hanging out as friends, you have to say date and mean it like a couple. Fine. Kurenai turned her nose up, blushing slightly. I'm going to hold you to it, Anko warned her. God, he better wake up soon. Anko now had two things to look forward to. Hey Kurenai, thanks. Kurenai only smiled back at her, what are friends for? Tsunade was starting to feel a bit better this day, the bet was nearly over and from what she could tell the boy wasn't going to finish that move. So all she had to do now was just wait it out and then she would make sure Jiraiya honored his end and left this village. Then Tsunade planned to leave very quickly in the opposite direction. Of course not everything was going well. When Jiraiya wasn't training the kids he was constantly annoying her. Joining her for drinks and usually he would make some kind of comment that pissed her off enough to send him unconscious on the ground. She was also starting to worry about Shizune, she was spending a bit too much time with those kids, especially the girl. Every night she would get back to their room as Shizune would go on about how talented the girl was with chakra control. Although it was honestly rare to find someone that gifted for the more subtle arts of ninjutsu, Tsunade couldn't allow herself to get attached. Part of her wanted to tell Shizune to stop seeing them but the woman was happier than she could remember seeing in a long time. Shizune liked the kids and mainly interacting with others from the village who she hadn't seen in years. Tsunade had to admit that she never really thought about how Shizune might feel about never seeing her home again. Well, what of it? Tsunade wasn't forcing the woman to stay by her side. If she had to, she would force Shizune to go back if it made the woman happy. Tsunade could stand to be alone for some time again, she was used to it and she didn't want Shizune to start regretting staying by her side. Tsunade sighed, this was getting more complicated because deep down she liked having Shizune around, someone that was there for her when she needed them. The young woman was more than an apprentice and more of a friend. In fact, Shizune was most likely the closest friend she had in life currently. Tsunade was on her way to meet Shizune for lunch but she was wondering if she should tell the woman to not get too close to those kids, it only to make the separation easier on the woman. She was so lost in thought she didn't notice the dark presence coming up from behind until it was several feet away. Looking around she noticed she was in a small side street, there were no other people walking and it was a good ambush site. She chided herself for letting this happen. She knew that a ninja was to never forget where they were or to let the guard down and to always be ready. She had spent too many years getting soft, something she would have to look into soon. Tsunade paused suddenly as she turned to face them. There were two of them in robes and hats that hid their faces. Glaring at the two men she widened her stance as she got ready for a fight. Alright, why are you two following me? If it's about a department then you should have brought more than just you two. A dark chuckle from one of them made her even more on alert as it was a voice she knew all too well. Well, that's not a very warm welcoming. The man took off his hat showing pale skin with golden snake eyes or Orochimaru. We haven't seen each other in years and this is the first thing you say to me. And you look like you haven't aged a day either. Well, your age isn't even skin deep, but I don't want to talk about the secrets to looking young. What do you want? She demanded coldly as she flicked her eyes quickly to the other one as he took off his own hat. She didn't know the boy, he looked like a young teenager with white hair and glasses, but there was something about the boy that said he could be trouble. Orochimaru only smiled at her. I wanted to give you an offer, that's all. After all, we're such close friends at one point. Until you betrayed the village, she told him. Please, how is that any different than what you did? He asked. Now that was pushing things too far for her. I left on good terms. I didn't commit crimes against the village and against everything I stand for as a medic. I learned all about those god-forsaken experiments of yours. The things you've done can never be forgiven for the price that had to be paid for whatever you learned from them. Oh, you might change your mind soon enough, he chuckled again. You see, I have learned a lot even about life and death. It's not such a final thing as you would believe. Isn't that what you always wanted to learn, how to battle death and win? She paused as his words hit a soft spot in her, and how she had always tried to fight death and how many times she had lost. He also knew that and most likely why he picked those words out. Well, I've learned how and I'm willing to share that is if you want to listen to my deal. She remained silent, just the thought of all those horrible things she had learned he had done made her sick to her stomach, and the fact that he most likely hadn't stopped those insane experiments. Looking at him now, she could see that his age wasn't the result of an illusion like her own. There had been a forbidden jutsu that might have worked, but she couldn't believe he might have gone that far. There was also some small part of her that wanted to listen to what he had to say. There was so much death in the world that she was sick of seeing it. He took her silence to continue on. If you join me instead of going back to that village, Then you can learn all kinds of secrets, and to give you added incentive, how about I give you back 2 people that you've lost? Her eyes widened as she felt like someone had stabbed her in the heart. You can't mean. Of course I mean it, he grinned widely at her. I'll give you back your lover and your little brother. That's impossible. Normally yes, but you see, while I was in Konoha for a month, I took the time to gather a few special specimens. I've perfected a very old technique that a certain relative of yours created, if I'm not mistaken. Now understanding hit her. It had been a forbidden jutsu created by her own great uncle. The second Hokage had developed a technique to revive the dead. The knowledge of that technique had been passed on through the family, but not anything about the technique of the jutsu. The only scroll containing all the notes was supposed to be locked up in the most secure of the Hokage's tower with all the other forbidden knowledge. When her grand uncle had figured out what that technique was, he had ordered the knowledge sealed and forgotten by all, that it was a crime against the world of man and against God. She fought that small part of her that wanted to see them again. They were dead and gone, and they should stay like that. But she couldn't silence that little voice that kept speaking all the things she wanted to hear. You know, when I found that jutsu of your family's, I was impressed, Orochimaru stated. It was brilliant work, I can see where you get it from. But it was flawed, the returned were only dolls, and it was imperfect. It took me years, but I've perfected your family's jutsu. It's amazing what I had to do in order to get it working just right. So what do you say? Come with me to a little field on the west end of the village just outside of the walls, and I'll show you. You can see them again, they'll be good as new. Tsunade wanted to tell him to go to hell, but if a fight broke out here it would be trouble. There were too many innocent people in the way. Was that the reason he was picking a wide open area where no one would find them? He most likely had something else planned. There had to be more reason for him showing himself to her. Well, if it came down to a fight, she was pretty sure she could take him if she had to, plus he had a feeling he wasn't just going to let her walk away from here. Fine, let's get this over with. You lead the way, she told him, not wanting to show her back to either of them or to get too close to either of them. He grinned at her as he nodded her point, and they all started to walk. Kabuto paused for a moment as he looked behind them. He thought he sensed a presence just now, but maybe it was nothing. He continued walking with the 2 others as he didn't want to be left behind. Down the road and hiding behind the corner of a wall was Shizune as she was pressed up against it, nearly holding her breath as she listened to their fading footsteps to make sure they were a good distance away. She finally let her breath out. She has heard everything and knew this was very bad. She needed to get help. Shizune knew that Tsunade wouldn't take any deal by Orochimaru, but she wasn't sure what her plan was. So Shizune had to go and find help, but there was only one group that she could go to for help. Although she trusted Tsunade to handle herself in a fight, this whole thing was giving her a bad feeling. She ran off to the hotel hoping she could find him there. There wasn't much time. Elsewhere. Man, I can almost get this if I can just figure this out, Naruto muttered. I mean, there has to be a way around it. You've been saying that for 2 days now, Sasuke sighed, getting slightly irritated that he was going on this again. He himself was nearing completing a new jutsu that would allow him to send lightning chakra into his sword. If he could master that, then he would start with other objects soon. Is it really that hard? Sakura asked, sitting between the 2 of them. She had learned early on that sitting between them when they both were irritated was the only way to keep things from blowing up between them. Given that they were out of reach of each other was a big help. Well, it's this last part, Naruto explained to her. I mean, you got to keep the chakra compact but keep it spinning with lots of power. I can only focus on one at a time, but you need to focus on both for it to keep it working. He sighed, slumping slightly. He was running out of time for this bet, and honestly he felt like he was slamming his head against a wall with this problem. Too bad you don't have 2 heads, Sakura commented. That way you can focus on both at the same time. Yeah. Hey yeah, Naruto perked up as inspiration hit him. Sakura-chan, you're a genius, that's exactly what I need. I think he's finally cracked under the stress, Sasuke commented. Shut up. I think I'm really onto something here. Naruto got up and was all excited now. I still got time, but this just might work. Come on, hurry up, we got to get back to the training area so I can try this out. Sasuke leaned into Sakura to whisper to her. What idea did you give him? I'm not sure, she replied. She remembered her comment, but she had no idea where he was taking it. It had just been a joke, but apparently Naruto had seen something in it, and Naruto was the type that could see what others missed or wouldn't think about. One of the reasons he was so unexpected she had learned over the years as his friend. Suddenly a new person ran up as all three young teens turned to look at Shizune. She had seen them on the way to the hotel and was thankful that she had found them. She had pushed herself hard to run here, but thankfully, although she hadn't been on any missions in years, she kept up her physical strength. So she wasn't out of breath, but now that she was here she didn't see Jiraiya. Now she was worried if he wasn't here she wasn't sure they would have the time to find him. Hey Shizune-chan, is something wrong? Naruto asked. He had gotten to like the older woman in the past few days. She was really nice to him even when she scolded him for going overboard with his training. She was like a big sister that he never had, so he got to calling her that. She didn't seem to mind, and honestly she was kind of cool too with how she knew so much about medical stuff. He didn't understand it, but Sakura was taking it up like she was a natural at it. Where's Jiraiya? She asked, looking around. Three faces seemed to take on the same deadpan expression. He said he needed some time to think. Naruto told her. That meant he was getting depressed over that he might have to let Tsunade go and was currently off at a certain bar drinking and having fun, as he liked to say. Shizune cursed her luck. We need to find him fast. He's the only person I know that can help Tsunade out of the trouble she's in. What trouble? Sakura asked her, seeing the fear on the woman's face. Orochimaru is here and she went with him outside of the village, she told him as all three of the Genins froze in place. They all remembered encountering Orochimaru in the Forest of Death. Sasuke's hand felt the mark on his neck, the ever-constant reminder of that man. Please, we have to get Jiraiya as fast as possible, Shizune asked of them. We know where he is, but why is Tsunade with Orochimaru? Sakura asked, worried how this sounded. I think she plans on doing something dangerous, Shizune told them. She might have gone into this thinking she could handle it, but I just don't know. Field outside of the village. Tsunade looked around her. The village was just out of sight and some woods were in the opposite direction. The place was pretty barren actually, and no one seemed to come this way. That didn't surprise her. The main roads were on the other side of the village, so there wouldn't be much traffic here. She had no idea what he had planned, but even if she believed him in his claim that he could bring them back, she couldn't do it. She knew what a crime that jutsu was and she would stop him. He had perverted too much medical knowledge for his own gains, hurt too many people, and there was no forgiveness in her. She still remembered when they brought in that girl that had been his apprentice. She couldn't remember her name, but soon it had been brought in to help out. The poor girl had lost so much of her memories that even Tsunade had failed to bring back. They finally stopped roughly around the center of the field. That was fine with her, it was time she wanted to get this over with. Well, no one should get in our way out here, Orochimaru smiled. So then, where were we? I believe you were going to tell me something that I wanted to hear and then try and convince me to join you, but let's just say we did that and get to the real point of all of this. Tsunade told him, clearly not wanting to drag this out any more than was needed. I highly doubt you actually thought for a moment you could convince me of all people to join you and just ignore all the things you've done or will do. I figured the reason you wanted us to come out here, and it wasn't just so that you wouldn't have privacy for a chat. He chuckled just then. I'm not surprised you figured that out. I was hoping that I could talk you into joining me, but I also knew it was a long shot. I figured that I had nothing to lose even if I tried. So you won't join me? Pity, I really could have used your talents. Oh well, you see, even though I know that you might not rejoin the village, I can't take the chance that you would go back. I took a long time in order to weaken the village as it is now. If you return, it might give the village some hope, and we can't have that. Plus, if I get you out of the way, then my other targets would be much easier to deal with. Other targets? What other targets? Tsunade was thinking that maybe he could be talking about Jiraiya, but he said there was more than one. She didn't think he meant Shizune. Sure, she was a great medic, one of the best, but was she really worthy to be killed for that? You see, there is a young boy that I've marked that I want. He grinned, licking his lips. His eyes are something that I need. With them I could learn so many jutsus in just a few years. The power I could have with them is nearly unimaginable. I hope that he'll be more willing for my offer of power. After all, I know what he wants most and I can give it to him. Tsunade figured out he had to be talking about the Uchiha boy, and it didn't sound like he was out for the boy's best interests. Who's the other one? A certain Jinchuriki boy, he told her. You see, I used to belong to a certain group, and that boy and others like him, well, they're important. I never did learn the full reason. I knew it was more than what the leader of this group told us, but I was only there for my own reasons anyway. Fact is we parted not on the best of terms and they need all 9 of them. So if one were to say, die, well then they wouldn't be too happy about that. He laughed then as Sunad looked at him in anger. He truly had fallen from when they had been kids. That young boy she had known would never have done any of this. This was just the proof that he had gone totally insane in the years she had last seen him. But it was a old calculating insanity of some kind. He was fully aware of himself but he just didn't care how his actions hurt others. He had always been a bit cold and distant but it was like she was seeing a totally different person in the body of her once friend. Well, this was going to be easy then. A part of her worried that maybe there was some old part of him still left but by the looks of it there wasn't. The old Orochimaru was long gone and dead, replaced by this monster in his flesh. She didn't know this person and the fact that he was threatening children made her blood boil in a cold rage. She didn't care about Konoha, at least that's what she always said, but the thought of any kid, even if they were genins and should know what kind of world they live in, they were still kids in her eyes. She kept seeing her younger brother's body under that bloody sheet in her mind. He had gone too far this time as she dug in her heels preparing for the fight. She wasn't sure what that boy with him was or what he could do but she would keep an eye on him just in case. Her main focus however was Orochimaru. I'm going to do what the old man should have done to you a long time ago, she told him coldly. He only laughed. There's that old fire in your eyes, let's see if age has slowed you down a little, shall we? Blue Room. Jiraiya had found this establishment a couple of days into their time in this village and honestly he was glad for the distractions it gave him. Oh sure, he had been trying to train the kids as best he could, give advice to Naruto, but the only way for the boy to learn the Rasengan was to learn it yourself. You could know the steps but it was up to the person to discover how to put it all together and get it working. Jiraiya believed that in order to make a jutsu your own you needed to discover it yourself, to learn through failure and achievement, to really get your hands dirty and through hard work to finally master it could you truly understand a jutsu. It was one of the things he always argued with against Orochimaru while on the same team. Although now he was wondering if he should break that rule and try and get the kid to learn the Rasengan, but despite all his flaws he wasn't a cheater. Plus the boy was eager to learn it himself and prove that he could master it. The deal line was fast approaching and he wasn't looking forward to returning to Konoha empty-handed and having to face the Hokage with failure. He also hadn't been able to get Sunad to see reason either. So of course he was feeling depressed and maybe a little old, so he did what he usually did to cheer himself up. Go out drinking and find some pretty girls to keep him company, hence why he was now in the Blue Room as the place had decent drinks and decent women who all seemed to be dressed in blue. Currently he was on another drink as he had 3 women around him, they smelled nice and they had nice skin. He knew that the only reason they were with him was because he was paying for their time, not that he really cared. When you got to his age and didn't have someone in your life, when you felt empty inside in those dark times alone with a broken heart, you would cherish even the illusion that he was indulging in. So he just went with it, enjoying himself and maybe in a way he would feel like he was actually enjoying his time. Well, maybe it wasn't that hard given that these were pretty ladies he was with and he did enjoy pretty girls. I must say you ladies are sure are something, he grinned like an idiot. That's nice of you to say, the woman on his left said, cuddling up to his side. Yeah, you're a lot of fun to hang out with, the other spoke up. Jiraiya wasn't sure if they were telling him the truth or just telling him what he wanted to hear, but he didn't care. So how much longer are you staying? The third asked. We hope you're staying for a long time. Well ladies, my time in this place is nearly gone. I got to head back home soon, but before that how about we really party? He laughed. If he was going to get into trouble when he got home, he might as well enjoy himself before he had the old man got to him. There he is. A very loud and familiar voice was heard among the crowd. Jiraiya groaned. What was he doing here? He turned to look to see Naruto and the other 2 trying to make their way in, although given their ages it was no wonder that the doorman was trying to hold them off. He was also surprised to see Shizune was here with them. That was odd. Naruto was yelling up a storm as he sighed. He better see what the kid wanted or else they might kick him out for all the trouble this was starting to cause. Excuse me ladies, Jiraiya said before getting up and walking up to them. Okay, what's so important that you kids might end up getting me kicked out of here? Jiraiya, you need to help Sunad, Shizune told him frantically. She's in trouble and we need your help. Now he was getting serious. What trouble? It's that snake freak again, Naruto said. Snake freak. Orochimaru, Shizune clarified. Jiraiya was very still for a moment as he processed that before leaving the club so quickly he left the others behind for a second. They quickly caught up to him just outside as he looked at them. Point me in the right direction, he told them seriously. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.